Okay, good evening, second graders. Just wanted to go over your homework with you from math. Okay, let's read the first problem together. Susan rides her bicycle for 14 blocks. Awan rides his bicycle for 8 blocks. How many fewer blocks does Awan ride than Susan? Okay, so first I need to figure out, is this a start change result? Is it a part whole? Or is this a compare problem? Right away, I can see a couple keywords that tell me what kind of problem this is. Can you find those keywords? I'll give you a couple seconds. Okay, let's say it together. The keywords that I see are fewer than. Fewer than, okay? And whenever I see fewer than, that tells me this is a compare problem. That's right. Okay, so that lets me know I can start getting set up for compare problem. And whenever we have a compare problem, I always like to draw my picture first because that will help me set up my equation the right way later. Okay, in a compare problem, we always draw comparison bars with the amount that is more or the person who has more on top, the fewer or lesser amount on the bottom. And then in the circle is where we put the difference between the two, how many more than or how many less than. So I always need to think who has more and who has less. When I go back to my problem, I can see that Susan has more because she's ridden 14 blocks. And Awan has less because he's only ridden for 8 blocks. And I'll put their numbers now into my bars. So Susan was 14 and Awan was 8. That lets me know if I have both of these things, I'm only missing the difference. I can go back to my question and make sure that that's correct. So if the question is asking how many more than or how many fewer than, I know that this is right. I go back to my question, how many fewer blocks does Awan ride than Susan? Okay, great. It is looking for the difference. So my setup for my picture is correct. Now I will go over to write my equation. And compare equations are always going to be more minus fewer equals the difference. And I can take the numbers right from my picture and plug them in over here. So more was 14, fewer was 8, and the difference is our box because that was our missing information. Okay, now I just need to solve this subtraction problem. If I wasn't sure or couldn't remember the math fact for 14 minus 8, I could count up from 8 to 14. So let's count up. So we start on 8, and we're going to count up until we get to 14. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If I look at my fingers now, I can see I have 5 fingers up on one hand and 1 finger up on my other hand, which tells me the answer is 6. So I'm going to write 6. And I need to go back to my problem now to look for the label. The label is always going to be after the keywords how many. So it's telling us how many of what we're looking for. So how many, and here I can see it says how many fewer blocks. So my label is going to be, so my label will be fewer blocks. Okay, great. Good start. Let's go to the next problem. Okay, let's read problem number 2 together. Are you ready? Eden has 7 blackberries. Her father gives her 9 more. How many blackberries does Eden have now? Okay, so I'm going to picture this problem happening in my mind. Eden has 7 blackberries. Her father gives her more. And now she has a new amount of blackberries. So I'm thinking this problem has to be a start change result because she's starting with 7 blackberries. That's the start. And then her father gives her more. So that is an action. It's changing the amount that she has. And then how many does she have now? Whenever we see how many does she have now or at the end, that's our result. That's a new amount that we have after this change. Okay? So let's write our equation and then we can draw our picture to solve it. Using the information from the story problem, I know that at the start of the story, Eden has 7 blackberries. So I'm going to write 7 for the start. And her father's giving her more, which is the change. So is this addition or subtraction? That's right, it's an addition problem. So we need to do 7 plus, and it gives her 9 more. So I'm going to add 9 for the change, and it equals box because we are trying to figure out what the result is. Okay, whenever we draw a picture for a start, change, result problem, we're always going to count up and draw with circles. So we're counting up from the biggest number, which will be 9 because 9 is bigger than 7. When I draw my pictures, I like to do it in groups of 5. So I'm going to count up 7 more than 9. So start with 9 and then add 1 more. And 9 plus 1 is 10. So I'm going to skip down to the next line because 10 is a multiple of 5. So now I'm going to keep adding 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I've drawn 5 circles. So now I'm going to skip to the next line, and that will bring me to 7. And drawing it like this allows me to count easily up to my answer. So I can see 9, 10, 15, 16 is our answer. And it's always good to double check and make sure that you have drawn the correct amount of circles. So that way your picture gets marked correctly. So I can see if I go back and count my circles, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm good. Now I'm going to go back to the question and I'm going to look for the label. When we look for the label, we always need to look after which words? That's right, we need to look after how many blank, okay? So this one says how many blackberries. So I'm going to write down here, blackberries. Okay, so if you got 16 blackberries, you're doing great. And if not, it's always okay to make mistakes because mistakes are opportunities for learning. All right, we're on to number 3. Let's read it together. There were 9 children on the bus. At the first bus stop, some children get off. 7 children are still on the bus. How many children got off at the first bus stop? Okay, so it's always good to think about it in your head what's happening in the problem. So there are children riding their bus. 7 of the children get off, and now there are still some children left on the bus. I think that this is a start, change, result problem because we're starting with the 9 children that are on the bus. And then something happens. They get to a bus stop and some of those children get off, which is the change. Then it says 7 children are still on the bus. So when we see that word still, that's kind of like how many are left over. So that's going to be our result. Let's use this information now to write our equation. So first we always do the start. And we can see 9 children were on the bus at the start. Now I need to think, is this change adding more children or is it taking children away from this amount, from 9 children that were on the bus? So let's think about this. The change says some children get off. What do you think? Is this addition or subtraction? That's right, it's subtraction because children are getting off, which means the number of children on the bus is getting smaller. So we need to take away from 9. And it says sum, which we know always means it's an unknown number. We need to draw a box. Okay, and then at the end we said there were 7 children still on the bus. Now we can draw our picture. So we're going to count up from 7 all the way to 9. Whenever there's a subtraction problem, we are always going to count up to the start because that is our biggest number. Remember, in subtraction, the change and the result are the partners, and the start is the total, only for subtraction. Okay, so let's count it from 7 to 9. So we write 7 and then count on 8, 9, and very easily I can see this is 2. So I'm going to write 2, and now I'm going to go and look for my label. How many children got off at the first bus stop? Okay, this is a really long label. I think we can shorten it a little bit and just write 2 children got off. Okay, you're doing great. We're moving on to the fourth and final problem.
Sure.
Okay, now let's read problem number 4. Read it with me. The clown has 12 red balloons. He has 4 blue balloons. How many more red balloons than blue balloons does he have? Oh, wow. So there's some red balloons and there's some blue balloons. Right away, I'm thinking this is a part whole problem because we have 2 different groups of balloons. We have red balloons and blue balloons. What do you guys think? Is this a part whole? You're right. I should read the question again. When there's a part whole problem, I know it's always part plus part equals whole. So if I have both parts right now, the question should be asking me, how many balloons are there all together? So I'm going to read the question again and see, is that what it's asking me? How many more red balloons than blue balloons does he have? That's not asking for how many balloons there are altogether. It's asking how many more red balloons than blue balloons does he have? Oh, you're right. This is a compare problem because it is saying how many more than. Great thinking. Okay, so since this is a compare problem, I'm going to set up my picture first with my comparison bars. So I need to think first which one has more and which one has fewer or less. And of course, what's the difference if it's telling us? So who has more, or what is there more of? Red balloons or blue balloons? That's right, there are more red balloons, so I'm going to put red at the top and blue at the bottom. It says the clown has 12 red balloons. He has 4 blue balloons. So that tells me the missing information is the difference. And I can check here. So the difference is always how many more than or how many less than there are. And the question is saying how many more than. So I'm definitely looking for the difference. Now I can take this information and write my equation. My equation is always going to be more minus fewer equals the difference. So 12 minus 4 equals box. Okay, so to solve this, I'm thinking, well, 4 is 2 and 2. And so I can do 12 minus 2 equals 10. And then 10 minus 2 equals 8. So I know my answer is 8. Now I need to go back and look for the label. So I'm going to look after how many. That's right. So how many more red balloons than blue balloons does he have? So I'm going to write 8 more red balloons. Wow, you guys did a great job on this. You are really smart, and I know that you probably got a lot of these correct. And hey, even if you didn't, we're always learning more and more every day. We always have an opportunity to set goals and improve ourselves. Okay, so if you like this video, you could tell me tomorrow at school. I'll see you in the morning. Good night.